heroes in a half shell. Turtle power.
Dave Sim, that would be me, interviews Kevin Eastman in a multi-part series on the origins of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 8, 1986, the Cerebus crossover, the front cover of which recently auctioned for an eye-watering $78,000 at HA.com. Turtles 8 Remastered 2023 is being offered March 1st to March 31st on Kickstarter, with a series of variant covers by some of today's hottest indie creators. Don't miss it. And don't miss Kevin's 12-piece Turtles art auction, including a page from Turtles number 8 with Cerebus on it, coming in the March 30th to April 2nd Heritage Signature Auction at HA.com. Also in the March 30th to April 2nd Heritage Signature Auction, my 3 Turtles number 8 variant covers. Now, let's talk to Kevin. To keep the momentum going, we're determined not to have a mid-Kickstarter slowdown this time.
It's one of those things. I've only done it twice, and it's quite a process and a challenge, and but it's what a great mechanism for all of us to use.
Yes, yes. It would have been great if guys like Wally Wood would have had Kickstarter way back when.
Yeah, it would have. That's one of my jokes in my panels, and when I do a little presentation at shows, I talk about my version of Kickstarter was borrowing $1,300 from my Uncle Quentin for the first issue. So.
Yeah, that
crowdfunding.
That gets into different issues as well. That
Yep.
I think Peter was probably on the right track with Xeric, trying to sort of institutionalize Uncle Quentin. Let's just give
100%.
them let's give them what we got, which was like a chunk of money. Don't screw it up.
Yep. No, it was a genius plan. I think it was hindsight always being 2020. I felt that was a much smarter way to go across the board, and he funded a number of really great projects. So yeah, I agree.
So
he didn't get
go ahead.
as good a coverage from Gary Groff as I did with Tundra, but he tried.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's a great plan. I really admire what he did with that. That was great.
So I want to sort of like rewind back to the beginning of that. I'm looking at Turtles 8. I guess one of the first titles that you published besides TMNT was Tony Basilicato's Prime Slime Tales.
Sort of. Actually, man, you're going to push my memory a bit. Because he was definitely some of the first ones out of the gate, because we did, Michael Juni had produced a book called Gizmo.
Right.
He'd
right.
done one self-published issue, and then we did 6 of those, and Jim Lawson had a book called Bait Biker. There's a couple other studio guys that had a couple of one-offs, but Tony was definitely in the mix, because he had he came up to meet us and was an interesting character. He brought us a tremendous gift of a I don't know, 3 foot tall turtle puppet that he had made. He said he had worked for the Creature Shop, Jim Henson's company, and stuff like that. I never, I had my doubts that was actually if he actually did, but he did in fact make puppets, and he had a little show of his own, and he did stuff. But it was, but yeah, we did Prime Slime Tales, and it was right in the middle of the middle to end part of the black and white boom and bust. So it was the first issue did okay, and then the second one dropped by 90%. The third one was almost non-existent. So
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. I didn't know that he was maybe spinning tales about working on Sesame Street because he definitely he knew how to do all the voices, and he was definitely a world-class puppeteer, at least from the standpoint of somebody who isn't a puppeteer at all. I didn't realize that he just brought the Muppet up to you at a convention.
Yeah, it was actually he came to us at a convention and told us that he worked for Henson. He was off on his own at that point and time, and he was doing other stuff. So he may have well worked for Henson. He was one of those. He's one of those characters that each time he told you the same story, it changed a bit.
Oh, okay.
So you start. So you kind of cross-sectioning, cross-examining yourself and comparing notes to what he said. But anyway, he approached us at a show with a bunch of his puppets, and we thought that was great. And then he came up to see us. We called him to come up to see us in Sharon, Connecticut, when we were still there, to talk about some ideas and things that he wanted to do. And at that time, he brought us the turtle puppet as a gift and left it with us. Which was funny because years later, as we kept that puppet, it was great. It was years later, our agent Mark Friedman borrowed it, and after he first met us, and he put it in a large box and sent it to Playmates Toys, and with a note of something like, call me when you get this, and I forget if it was Rich Salas or Bill Carslin, one of the two heads of Playmates Toys at the time, opened the box and called them and said, what the hell is this? And it was a great puppet, too. He did a really good job. But then, unfortunately, and as many times as we asked for it, we never got the puppet back.
Oh, man.
So it was kind of a funny thing. So somebody ended up with it, but we don't know where it ended up. But anyway, we got a toy deal out of it.
Because I did see the Turtles puppet and went, oh, that's really cool. And Tony Basilicato was enough of a Cerebus fan to say, do you want a Cerebus Muppet? And it's like, yeah, what are we talking about here? And he said, if you do me a painting of Cerebus standing on a pile of dead Smurfs, I will do you a Cerebus Muppet. And that was a done deal as far as I was concerned.
Did you actually do that? Was it consummated? That's awesome. Oh my God, that's really funny. That's great. I love it.
So you parted ways with Tony at some point then?
Yeah, it was one of those. The sales weren't there, and for a lot of we like everybody else that jumped into the black and white boom and then bust. Even like a nice quality book like Gizmo, Mike Dooney's book, and some other ones suffered the same fate as everything else. By the time we got to issue 6, it was less than a couple thousand copies ordered. I think comic stores were just floundering with saturation of the next Turtles that would be worth $50. A number one issue would be worth $50. They do 50, 60, 100,000 copy press runs for issue 1. So yeah, pretty much everything was canceled as the sales dropped below what made any sense, and then same for prime time sales, and then we just never heard from Tony again. As far as I know, I don't remember ever seeing him at a show or anything, or hearing from him again.
Yeah. I said in my phone message to you that by the time we were doing the Creator Summits in 1988, I was a good 5 years past publishing other people. My reaction to publishing the other titles through Hard Rock Vanaheim and the agreement that Denny and I had was that she would take the other titles and I would assume the debt that we were carrying on the animated Cerebus portfolio and just keep going with Cerebus. And my reaction at that time and for a good number of years after that was never again. I am never doing this again. And coincidentally, maybe not coincidentally, cracked at the Moondance signing where I met you and Peter because Michael Zully and Stephen Murphy came up with a page from Puma Blues and would I be interested in publishing this? And
yes, did you?
And my theory was maybe the problem is trying to publish a bunch of other titles. Maybe if I just publish one title. And it's like,
right.
No. What is it about us that we just can't leave it alone?
It's a really good question. And I think it's when I look back at so many of those kinds of decisions that I made, it was my love and enthusiasm for the medium, the art form, the project, seeing people that had such incredible work. Even I think our Rock Brandheim published. Did you guys do William Messer Loeb's? What was the comment?
Yeah, Journey.
Journey, yep, Journey, and a number of other ones. And yeah, when like the same thing that how you reacted to a book like that, you just probably said the same thing I would have said is this really deserves to be published and out there because it's really good quality, it's well written, well drawn. And so, even at the many faults of Tundra, I'd still see something, even though we were, far beyond pushing the limits and capacity and what we should have been handling and paying attention to, I'd see something else, and it would sort of fall under that, like, this really should be published, and that's where just everything you get into a bit of trouble there. But I agree that perhaps if it was just one other book or two other books, that's smarter. But then even that, as I often say, hindsight is 20/20. That every single thing that you add to your plate is just another distraction to keep you from doing what we should be doing.
Which is our work.
Well, it's our own work, exactly. And that was one of the things when I had many years of working in and around Hollywood. I really, loved independent filmmaking and thought wrote a number of scripts. Thought I'd like to direct a film and I'd like to do this, storyboard that, and then we had some opportunities and things developed in and around heavy metal magazine and different movie options there, and it just was. I say with a great amount of confidence, and I think the numbers might even be a little low. For the time I was in Hollywood pitching projects, I probably, I had about 10,000 meetings, and not one of them produced a job.
Right. Right.
And that respect, and it was, I had a project, a kids project called Underwear that I sold to Sony. I self-published it in 1995. Sold it to Sony Wonder. It took more than a year to negotiate the contract. They did nothing with it for 3.5 years. I got the rights back. Sold it to Columbia TriStar Animation. They sat on it did nothing with it for another 3 or 4 years. The guy that ran Sony, Columbia TriStar Animation, then went to Warner Brothers. He then optioned it over there. which they did nothing with it with it for another 4 or 5 years. Then it was 2 or 3 other suitors. So a project that I had, well, then I spent about 15 years working hard at not getting that made.
Right, right. Yeah, and even when you bring up Journey with Bill Lopes, it reminds me of the situation where he wasn't really happy with his circulation. He wanted to be selling more copies and got the idea that he would do a double-sized issue of Journey for a single issue cover price, and that this would be an incentive to get people to try it out. And that got into, well, okay, it's his book. If he thinks this is going to work, I tend to err on the side of, well, it's your book, you should have the decision making. But just, from a pure common sense standpoint, people are not going to buy a book that they're not already buying because there are twice as many pages.
Yep.
Which is exactly what happened. And then when he saw what he was making on that issue in particular, then that really reached a boiling point and a breaking point of this is untenable. And it's like, well, yeah, but it's untenable because of your decision making in a lot of ways, and it's we can be idealistic, and I think, like in my case, I was trying to avoid the Beatles' mistake with Apple, which the more you try not to do that, the more you end up doing that.
Well, it's probably one of my favorite sayings in the early days of Thunder was, "It's going to be like Apple Records without that same ending," and it was exactly that to the letter. It was exactly Apple Records.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's ideal. It was definitely idealistic on your side. I think part of it is kind of a weird survivor's guilt, which is Wildfire's success guilt, where you've got the money that how many Uncle Quentin $1,300 checks are you sitting on? And all you have to do is give them to people, and they can, live the dream that you're living. And it's like, it just doesn't, the world just doesn't work that way.
Nope. No, it absolutely does not. And that's, almost circling back to almost where this part of this started, was I felt like this conversation was Pete's idea was ideal. It was perfect. It was really, he put aside money into an account that had a decent return, and every year the profits from that investment, he would have a budget to set on selecting projects, and then picking and choosing. It's sort of like a comic book version of PBS or something, or a lot of the foundations that support a lot of that independent programming and stuff. So that was definitely a much smarter business model, or just model for success, because it's you still, repeat what you already said. It's like, you really, here's the money, much like Quentin did for us, and do what you committed to do. Kind of like what we do with Kickstarter now. Like people give you money beforehand, and we produce something on the Kickstarter, complete that project, then send it to them, and then the awesome part is that we end up owning it at the end of the day to do whatever you like with that project. We're actually finishing up the second Kickstarter for a book I did called Drawing Blood, which I think I mentioned to you.
Yes.
I was working on.
Yes.
So.
The fictionalized Kevin Eastman.
Yep. Yeah, it's much more interesting, trust me. But the which I will get you a copy of that. I'll put it together. But we're finishing up the second part of that, and then we'll see if we're going to do a third one, or maybe line it up with another publisher and see if we can roll it out that way. Because again, we did, it does come down to just facilitating the Kickstarter supporters as we need to and want to from a successful Kickstarter campaign. It's a lot of work. You actually do the work, and then you have to package the work and ship the work, and there's a lot of busy part to it. And then everything I measure these days against drawing time, which is I spent many years, 20 years of avoiding drawing, it seems like.
Yeah.
Drawing, but not seriously. So that I'm pretty. The last 12 years, I'm pretty guarded about it.
I'm doing the Turtles original art cards and sending those to comic stores to try and beat the bushes for comic store orders on Kickstarter. And I also want to do a Turtles 8 zombie cover based on the cover that you did for First Comics. And it's like, we might be coming to an either or here, Grandpa. I don't know if you can do both of these.
Interesting, right? But you're drawing more now these days, right? Is that? I know
Yeah. I decided it was do-it-yourself rehab for the wrist, which basically involved 7 years of resting it and testing the limits, and then finally decided, okay, I'm just going to treat this as writer's cramp. And writer's cramp, you just stop writing when you get writer's cramp and start writing again when you can. And so far, so good. So far, so good.
Good. Well, sending positive thoughts and vibes for that, because I do the same. It's like I break up my drawing schedule throughout the day, because at the end of the day, because I can do about 2 hours or so before it starts cramping up a little bit, or just getting tight. So then I'll stop and goof around with the dogs, or massage it and stretch it, and just give it a break, and then go back and then do that. So I'll probably, on a good average day, I can probably get about 6 hours, to sometimes 8 hours, depending. So at least 3 2-hour sessions.
That's good.
And
That's good.
So I've gotten to, at my age, and then, I don't know if it worked that way for you, but we do, I think we both acknowledge our drawing skills or lack thereof, and I've resolved myself to the fact that I can only draw this way, and I can only draw this good. And drawing more is not going to make me draw better. So
Right.
you come up with ways, economical ways to work through pieces and still get something you're comfortable with or happy with at the end.
Okay, we're up over 20 minutes again, so we're going to call this a segment.
Okay.
It goes by in a hurry. I wanted to ask you next time. You said that you consider Peter a much better technical artist than yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, do you know if Peter agrees with that? But we'll make that the cliffhanger and pick up on that particular subject next time.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So I'm happy to join you in another chat whenever you're up. I know you're into the campaign right now, so I don't know when you're staging or when you're rolling these out, but I really enjoy the conversations. I know they do run long, but I'm happy to jump on a call and record some more as much as you'd like to.
That's terrific.
I look forward to it.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon, Kevin.
Thanks, Dave. You have a great night.
Yes, you too. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.